Hello and welcome to the local campaign, helping voters make an informed decision for the upcoming municipal election. I'm your host and moderator, Dan Polstrek. Tonight, we have the Kitchener Ward 1 debate. Kitchener's first ward is located in the northeast portion of the city. It is bordered by Woolwich Township and the Grand River to the north and east, the city of Waterloo and Highway 85 to the west, and Ottawa Street north to the south. Some features of Ward 1 are the Stanley Park Conservation Area as well as the Bridgeport and Heritage Park neighborhoods. The candidates vying for this council seat are the incumbent Scott Davey, Marcus Drozdo, Aja Khatoun, Susan Stark, and Stephanie Stretch. Speaking order was drawn before the debate, so with their opening remarks, here is Stephanie Stretch. Stephanie.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Stephanie Stretch, and Ward 1 is where I grew up. It's where I played in the yards and rode my bikes on the trails. It's where I went to school and played Stanley Park baseball. This is where I have worked and spent my life and energy, time and focus serving the people of this community. I am a helper, a listener, and a community builder, a young professional mother, and a needed voice around the table. I'm an active volunteer at Ward 1. I believe there needs to be a change in politics. I believe we can do better than good enough. And when change starts local, it's more sustainable. But before we can have change that's more sustainable, there needs to be a willingness to work together. I value collaboration and consensus building, compassionate community building and smart growth, transparent government where your voice matters. My goal is to work with you to create a strong community where your neighborhood and your city is a place you love to live and a place you can afford to live, because I'm also committed to keeping tax increase at or below inflation. We can only do this through the use of collaboration and the understanding of when to be creative and push for new ideas and when to listen to experience. I am that leader. With the uncertainty of our provincial government, now is the time for our voices to be heard. And now is the time for our local leadership to prioritize community and collaboration. Join me on October 22nd and vote for Stephanie Stretch. You can also find more information about me on my website at votestretch.ca. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Scott Davey.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you to Rogers for hosting this debate. My name is Scott Davey, and I'm honored that you have trusted me to represent you on council. I grew up here, and now my children are growing up here too, attending schools right here in Ward 1. For the past 7 years, council has chosen me to oversee the budget as Kitchener's finance chair. Politicians can lie, but numbers do not, and I'm proud to tell you that after a decade of deficits, our last 3 years we posted surpluses in our budgets. We have paid down almost 40% of our debt. Kitchener's has had the lowest tax increases in the Tri-Cities, and as promised, we did it without cutting services. In fact, we've been enhancing services and improving our parks, trails, roads, and community centers. We've also made great strides to support arts and culture, the Humane Society, and environmental initiatives. Going forward, I want to make Kitchener the most livable and efficient city possible. By automating services, we can continue to keep costs down. We have already installed new smart streetlights, meaning we're the only city around that has its own private internet. Over time, savings will increase as we use this technology in more ways. Imagine water meters that warn you of a leak before a costly bill, park trash cans that alert city workers before they're overflowing, or emergency services warned earlier about emergencies. We are developing this technology already. While these are examples of a better service, they're also less costly to operate, which frees up resources. I would see these resources go towards better park maintenance, faster snow clearing, and further enhancing safety on our roads and trails. We can do these things while keeping taxes under inflation and continue to reduce debt. This is my platform, my pledge, and my promise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davey. Ms. Stark.
Thank you to Rogers for hosting this debate, and I want to thank you for tuning in today to learn more about the candidates for Ward 1. I also want to encourage you to get out and vote, because this election will determine who will make decisions on your behalf at City Hall for the next 4 years. The stark reality is this election is not about me or my running mates, it's about you. Kitchener is your city, Ward 1 is your home. This is where you have raised or are raising your children, and we want to make sure that it remains safe and livable. As I've been walking about, knocking on your doors and talking to you over the past 6 weeks, you've identified several key concerns you have. First, it's not that you have the mentality of not in my backyard for development. What you want is development that complements your existing neighborhood. You've told me that you want the council to stick with the zoning that's currently there. So if it's zoned for 3 stories or 6 stories, you don't want a 14 or 20-story building in your backyard. You've shared that you would like traffic calming measures on some of the streets to make them safer for all of the residents, but primarily children and seniors. You've also talked to me about, with the growth that's going to be happening in individual residential units, whether growing up or out, that you're concerned about our water. I agree on all these things, and I will be a strong, committed voice for you on these issues at the table. You have concerns about a 2-term limit for all elected municipal officials. I can tell you that will not be legislation by the time this election rolls around, but you have the power to implement that on October 22nd by voting for me, Susan Stark, and for your voice at council. We do need a change. Everyone is correct on that, and I am listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stark. Ms. Hatoun.
Thank you so very much, Dan. Hi, my name is Asia, and my only objective as soon as I'm elected in this election is to get better job for our residents. Our Kitchener families are finding it really difficult, and our youth is finding it has huge study loans. They get the study loans and then they end up in Tim Hortons and Walmart and survival jobs. If they can't find a better job here or whatever they're getting here, after some time they're leaving their city and moving on to other places for a better life. Eventually what's happening, our senior population is increasing. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that seniors from all over the country are coming in to live in Kitchener because it's such a great city. It means our loved ones are leaving us. But then on the other hand, what are we even giving to our seniors? We are providing them no better life. They are actually living in horrible conditions, I would say. And I believe this needs to change. On the other hand, the non-Kitchener residents, they come in, they get better job because they have better trainings. They come here, they get better jobs, better pay, better benefits, and once they're done, they leave the city. Look at the elective representatives. You will find them pick up a newspaper. You find them at different events. You will find them at different parties. Why aren't they doing what they're supposed to do? Why aren't they better representing us? My children and my family is growing up here in Kitchener just like you guys. And I want a better future for them. I want a better future for the community and the people around us. And I cannot do it, or we cannot do it alone. For that reason, I want to, and I ask you to come forward on October the 22nd and vote for Asia as your Kitchener Ward 1 candidate. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Ms. Hatoun. Mr. Drozdo.
Hi, I'm Marcus Drozdo. My story is a little simple one. I grew up with immigrant parents, landed immigrants, and in the construction industry that taught me a lot about hard work. But it was actually Mr. Rogers that taught me probably the largest life lesson ever, that the world needs more helpers. So I pretty much spent my entire life helping. That's what I do for a living. It started out simply as working in hospitality and restaurants, things like that, helping people get their meals and food. Turned into tour guiding around Europe and helping people find their way and learn the cultures and the travel of Europe and everything that entails that. After that, I've helped people with my business, which is construction. I help people with renovations. I help make their home a better place, a more valuable place, a more lovable place to live. And then after the last time I ran an election in 2014, I learned that I needed to do much more to help the citizens of Kitchener. There's a lot of people that fall through the traps all across the city, and the city of Kitchener itself just really can't help enough of them. And so we started a few different things. One of the things I co-founded was 100 Men Who Give a Damn Waterloo Region. It's a local organization with a very broad membership base, and a bunch of different guys from all kinds of backgrounds, ages, and jobs. And we get together every 3 months, and we raise, we get together every 3 months, 4 times a year. In the last 3.5 years, we've raised over $180,000 that we've given to local charities, and every penny of that money raised goes to them. So we made a super dent in what's going on inside the city. As well as that, I've also been a lifelong runner, as well as a supporter of the Terry Fox Run. I've been proudly the organizer for the last 2 years of that. We just had a run on Sunday, which was another fabulous day, raising over $15,000 for the Terry Fox Foundation and fighting cancer research. As well as I sit on numbers of different things to help the city. The Homer Watson Gallery, I sit on the board of directors there, which helps artists and local get more artists available to the city to see. On top of helping, there's one last thing I'm going to be doing to help. I'll be taking 10% of my salary if I get elected this October, and I'll be using that towards my charities as well. That's Marcus Drasdale, October 22nd. I'd love to have your vote.
All right, well, thank you all for your opening remarks. To start the question and answer portion of the debate, each candidate will have 1 minute to answer the following question from Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce Vice President Art Sinclair.
All municipalities across Canada have been facing infrastructure challenges in the last number of years. That is, building roads, water mains, sewers, and other necessary structures that businesses and residents require on a daily basis. Do you support using property tax increases to finance current and future infrastructure requirements? And if not, what would you propose as an alternative revenue source?
And the incumbent Scott Davey will have the first crack at the response.
Okay, thank you for that question. It's a good one, and it's also a very important one. It is an issue that every municipality is facing. I recall that municipalities are responsible for somewhere around 60% of all infrastructure, but we only get around 8 cents of every tax dollar to pay for it. So I can answer the question directly and say I do not support further tax increases to cover off our infrastructure. And I can say that comfortably for 2 reasons. Number one, Kitchener is in much better shape than a lot of municipalities. We've heard some horror stories from cities like Montreal and others. And I can also say that Kitchener's in a really good shape where we're getting excess development that's going to increase assessment growth, which means more taxes from new buildings coming into the city. And I would dedicate a portion of that to help fund our infrastructure deficit. At the same time, we definitely need more help from senior levels of government to have a progressive tax system.
Thank you, Mr. Davey. Your perspective, Ms. Stark.
I agree with my opponent, which sounds strange to say, but we all should agree at some point. I don't think we should be using tax dollars or increasing them, especially since I'm a small business owner. So when you increase the property taxes on the owner of our building, we get that. So what I would like to see is the developments that's starting. I mean, I think over the next year or two, they will, or in February of 2019, the incentives the developers are getting will stop. So that should help us out with that. But they definitely should be putting a portion of what they do, or we should be speaking with them beforehand and saying, we want you to help support our social and infrastructure moving forward. Thank you.
And Ms. Hatoun, where do you stand?
Well, to tell you the truth, I agree with Scott as well. I believe we shouldn't be having any increase in the taxes, the property taxes, and we already have, and keeping in mind we have to keep it either under the deficit level, but in a way, even if you are planning on increasing the property taxes, there has to be consensus with the people, having them on board, and then moving forward. You see, the only problem I see is, first of all, communication. The second is better jobs. Better jobs means better income. Better income means better chances for people. And then again, on that point, we can talk about either increasing or keeping the taxes at the same level.
And your thoughts, Mr. Drozdo?
This is a funny topic. This is something that I've been looking at very specifically for the last 4 years. The irony is that not only does the incumbent here, as well as most of City Council and staff, like to use this little argument that they're only raising the property taxes at the rate of inflation. And then they use the same argument, what should we do about infrastructure and the roads and the sewers? The irony is, your tax bill has property taxes one thing, water, sewer, and stormwater are a different thing. So if those three aren't on there, then you use the topic of the property taxes staying at the rate of inflation, that doesn't make any sense, because we all know that water, sewer, and stormwater are going up over 10% per year. The biggest thing on this topic is looking at different alternatives on this subject. Questions like, why has the per kilometer rate of infrastructure for water and sewer gone up by 177%? Is it just labor costs? Is it something else? I've spoken to many people that work in this industry for the city. There are other options. The options of not replacing complete water mains, doing repairs, doing inside repairs. There are other options to look at than just raising taxes or even considering it. But all of this is one property tax. Water, sewer, and stormwater are property taxes. So put that together, does not stay at the rate of inflation. Do not listen to what they're saying.
Thank you, Mr. Drozdo. And your response lastly, Ms. Stretch.
Yes, thank you. I do not support a tax increase. I think having read over the budget and read over the information, I think the plans that Kitchener has to broaden the tax rate are going to be able, we're going to be able to confidently not increase our taxes.
Thank you all for that response. Moving on, Ward 1 contains a number of parks, trails, and riverside green spaces. What kind of environmental policy would you like to see the next council develop? And the first response goes to Ms. Stark.
Thank you. I can tell you for the past 18 years, I have been running the trail through the Stanley Park conservation area. And we did have a small business, tree business at one time. So I am in the habit of looking at trees, looking at things to see how we can work with that. There's a lot of vine in there. I think we get a lot of seniors that go through the paths. I don't know how feasible it is to plow those or do something with that in the winter. I would like to see us start picking up trash more. And I love them. I think they're great for the children. I've seen a lot more parks going up, small little parkettes in certain areas that are really great. At the end of Manchester, they just redid the water mains there, and there's a beautiful park. It's a lovely green space. So I would like to see the entire council just vote on keeping the green space and expanding what we have so families can enjoy it more.
And your perspective, Ms. Hatun.
Well, to tell you the truth, I have my kids. They love going to the park. I myself love going to the park and seeing the community people coming out, especially in summers. So I am actually for it that we need to work on the community parks, making it more safer, healthier for the community people, for the people of the neighborhood, and making it in a way accessible to even those who are unable to come to them, making it more, how would you call it, making it, caring for it more, caring for the trees, caring for the nature. And that's one of the ways that we are going to hand it over to our coming generations so they can enjoy what we had as when we were growing up.
Mr. Drozdo, your insight on the topic.
As the chair of the Cycling and Trails Committee for the City of Kitchener, I've done a lot of work over the last 3.5 years to make sure that our trails are up to snuff. We have a long way to go on this topic. There's not a whole lot of buy-in from anybody in City Council at all on this topic, and it'd be nice to see more trails, more expansion. Even more so, I'd like to see is more access to the Grand River. We have the most amazing river right beside us. As a kayaker, I've grown up my entire life kayaking that river. I know what's there. We just need more access points. We need more parks, more entrances, more ways to get at this nature. As far as the environmental side of things, we have a new program in the City of Kitchener, but I believe that we need something more with teeth. If we really all want to make a difference for the environment, we need to have things with short-term goals, short-term things that resolve to make things different today. Not these long-term things of 50, 70 years out. That's just kicking the can down the road. We need to take action today to help support the environment.
In your stance, Ms. Stretch.
Thank you. Supporting the environment and actively supporting and advocating for the environment through policy is very important. Of course, I have children. I too am interested. And growing up in Ward 1, we have lots of green space and lots of Grand River access to be thinking about, especially as our city grows and especially as development is on the increase. This absolutely is something that we need to prioritize. Access, absolutely, so that our quality of life can go up, so we can access trails and improve our physical well-being as well as our mental well-being. I think a big part of the access piece is really working on infrastructure to design smartly and so that trails can be accessible to all, from anywhere from 8 years old to 80 years old, that people feel safe riding their bikes, that a large number of people, a large group of the population can access these resources that we have that are specific to Ward 1. it is a big part of life, and it's a big part of having a good quality of life. And so absolutely, you can depend on me to be influencing policy at a city level as much as I can around the protection and the advocacy of the environment.
And final thoughts on environmental policy, Mr. Davey.
Thank you. On the park side, I'm I'm a strong defender in terms of never ever selling parkland. I think it's a resource that once it's gone forever. I am happy to report it hasn't been that well publicized, but there are actually 2 canoe launch sites going in Ward 1 off of Victoria Street. And the next one underway actually is in Bridgeport at the former Grand Hotel site, which is a regionally owned property, but they've agreed to let us come in and actually rejuvenate that place and make it a boat launch, which I'm really looking very forward to seeing. We're also blessed with having Kiwanis Park in Ward 1, which is one of the jewels of the city, and we were fortunate enough to have the dollars to spend $3 million actually to redo the pool in that area. We also planted 150 trees for Canada's 150, and we're installing a brand new significant playground in Kiwanis Park next year. The last thing I would add is it is in Kitchener's forecast to add a brand new Grand River Park, and obviously that's going to go somewhere close to Ward 1, but I would work very hard to make sure that's as close as possible to the south end of the ward.
Thank you for those responses. Moving from environmental policy and thoughts, we turn now again to Art Sinclair.
Is home ownership unaffordable for many recent graduates in Waterloo Region? And secondly, what can municipal governments do to assist with the housing supply in this municipality?
So somewhat of a twofold response for that, but we'll begin with Ms. Hatoun.
Okay, as I said, my only objective is to get better jobs, and somehow or the other it all comes back to that. Affordable housing, or the housing for young people in the Kitchener area, is if they don't have a job, if there is not good paying job, what is affordable, by the way? Yes, of course it is difficult. It is difficult from a young guy to an old guy to afford a house. So in the end, it comes back to it: finances, good, better jobs, benefits. That's what I'm going to fight for, and that's what my objective is. Once we get to that point, I promise you, once you have that financial stability within you, once you're confident that yes, you have, then affording housing is no big deal. But we need to get to the point where our young or our youth have good jobs rather than survival, Tim Hortons, Walmart, or other jobs where they're just wasting their time and getting, at the end of the day, getting nothing, no benefits, no security. So that's what I'm going to do, fight for better jobs for the residents and making sure everybody, all of us, from our younger generation, from our youth to our seniors, have better housing facilities and a better place to call their home. Thank you.
And Mr. Drozdo, what will you look to accomplish on that topic?
Well, as a contractor, a hands-on builder, I totally understand the affordability crisis that we sit here in the city of Kitchener. It's a multiple-pronged approach to something like this. Obviously, there is no one answer, never is. Simply one of the starting spots would be to make sure that we actually hold the developers accountable. Developers are getting a free ride in this city right now, and we're just at the beginning of this cups. So we need to make sure that they are including affordable housing inside their building plans today, before they even get started. Not after, but before. The simplest other thing we can do for all the residents is secondary suites, which is basically allowing homeowners to do, say, an add-on over the garage, apartment over the garage, apartment in the basement, a part of the house, or something like that. This has been approved by the province of Ontario right now, and we just need the City of Kitchener to act on it so that we can allow this. It would be a simple thing to do, is to allow, it would allow seniors to stay in their homes much longer. If they could have a rental unit in their home, it would allow them to have someone there that maybe could help with the snow shoveling, help with the grass cutting, as well as it would be able to help with new home buyers. If they had the option of doing a rental unit in their property, it'd be more affordable with today's high rates to get into a new buy for the first time. And then they could rent out to help with that mortgage payments, things like that. And it would just help people all in general to have more affordable housing. But if we had just that simple thing of secondary zoning allowances, and it's there. Even the region of Waterloo is actually giving grants for permits to allow people to pay for these things. So really, there are these little steps there to help affordable housing. Affordable housing is going to come while we put affordable housing all over the city, allow for more people to do this. That's a simple thing. This is a zoning issue. This is just something that City of Kitchener could have no problem doing tomorrow. If they really want to help affordable housing, this is how you do it.
Thank you. And what kind of plan would you offer, Ms. Stretch?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, breaking into the housing market is hard. It definitely was something that my family really had to work at. I think affordable housing is a very big deal in the region, not just for those who can afford to live somewhere, but for people, our vulnerable people, the people who can't afford housing. Our lists in the region are very long. And what is happening, developers are building, and there's maybe a little bit of an incentive to include some affordable housing in the builds. But there's no collaboration, and so as you're shopping and looking for a place to live, you might just luck out and receive cheaper rent than your neighbor. What's not happening is there's no connection, there's no collaboration between the people who need affordable housing actually getting affordable housing. So yes, we need to make sure that is in the plan in our new development, but we also have to make sure that we're connecting the dots. And that's something I am an expert in, is connecting and collaborating. That's what I hope to do to help connect the dots and to help people who need affordable housing access housing. Thank you.
And Mr. Davey, as the incumbent, how would you further look to improve the situation?
Well, we've already implemented some tools in terms of giving developers bonuses in terms of their density if they do include a portion of affordable housing. Now, we're kind of the victims of our own success, because Kitchener's economy is so strong now that everyone wants to move here, and what that's done is it's driven up property values. And to combat that, like, the fundamental issue is a supply and demand issue. And as long as we're making it difficult to add more units, which I think should go mostly in downtown Kitchener near transit, we're reducing that supply. So I think it's one of those, it's sort of a back and forth issue where we need to look at some of these issues, like the not in my backyard and even some of the heritage issues, and look at it and say, what is really more important here? I'm hearing stories about bidding wars for rental properties, which has never really happened before because there's such a tight supply. So I think one of the most important things we can do is loosen up the restrictions if developers do build a portion of affordable housing.
And Ms. Stark, what approach would you offer?
I may have misunderstood, but I'm not sure if the question was about home ownership affordability or affordable housing. So I'll first speak to the home ownership. When a starter home is $400,000 and up, or a townhouse is, there is a problem. My children are well educated. My son just bought a townhouse a few years ago, $400,000. So what I learned when I looked online, years ago I was here in Vancouver, you had a developer who decided he was going to build a condo tower. They were going to be small units, 500, 600 square feet, but he was going to offer them, now this is Vancouver, $350,000. So in Vancouver, that's unheard of. So when I approached someone about doing that here, they said, oh, we're not there yet. Why not? We have some fantastic developers who live locally who would probably work with us. And they're still making money. They're just doing smaller units. That, I think, is one of the key ways that we can do home ownership affordability. As for affordable housing, we should absolutely never touch our heritage homes, not compromise on them. We should be helping people who want to buy a heritage home to bring them back to that. Developers, there is a new law passed, I can't remember what it's called right now, but the auxiliary or zoning, that we can, as council, put in place that developers must put 10% or 20% of the units as affordable housing. Now, I have a colleague who's chatted with 2 developers, and what they've said is, well, it's not mandated. If it was mandated, they'd do it. I've met with several affordable housing organizations in town that are themselves meeting with developers. These are things they're open to. It's just never been approached in the proper way. That's the way we'll do affordable housing, but there are other ways that we can find affordable purchase properties. Thank you.
Thank you for those responses. Aside from affordable housing, we move on to another prevalent topic in homelessness. And my question is, what would you do to address homelessness specifically and addiction in Kitchener? And to begin the responses, we'll turn to Mr. Drozdo first.
Well, this is a This is a massive subject that needs a multi-pronged approach to deal with. Again, you know, there is no simple answer to this. No matter what we do, we're going to continue with homelessness, with drug addiction, these kind of things, no matter what our government passes about laws. I lived in Toronto and lived in Vancouver. I've seen this up close and personal for years. We see it in Kitchener a lot more these days probably than ever before. I think tent cities around this city is something that everybody has probably seen driving around Kitchener. And again, it's a hard one. I know that dealing with my 100 men who give it the Am Waterloo region, we've funded these 13 different charities so far, and each one of these charities deals with this issue head on, and it's extremely difficult. Our little drop in the bucket towards them is just really kind of a day-by-day help. I think that the City of Kitchener needs to step up again. We need to get involved in these things, whether that means going to the region, going to the province, going to somebody else. We need to address these things. We can't just throw up our hands and realize that, oh well, it's not our concern, it's not our thing, it's a regional thing, it's a provincial thing. It's a real easy cop-out for a lot of politicians to do. I think we need to do more. We need to do something. We need some sort of incentive for developers to help with this, for different charities to help with this, either tax breaks, things like this. We need to do more to try to help with that. On the drug front, it's a tough one. We see the addictions that are going on right now, and we see the confrontation that come along with injection sites. I know that there's been a few that have been proposed for the City of Kitchener. I know that there's a lot of heated discussion either end of them, whether you're for them or against them. These are topics that are very complicated and need a multi-pronged approach to deal with. And I think that we're not quite there yet for any solutions. All we can do is try to help in so many ways as we possibly can.
As Mr. Drowso said, a complex topic, but your thoughts, Ms. Stretch?
Yes, thank you. Having worked in the not-for-profit sector for a long time in Kitchener, coming up against the problem and the issue of homelessness is something that I encounter very often. Now, there are organizations that the city and the region can partner with that are real experts in housing people, in helping to support them to get off the streets and access the resources that they need. And I am proud to be a Kitchener resident who welcomes people and who has the city that has welcomed and is able to support these agencies to help people. So some of these agencies that I think are real experts, the Working Center, they work with some of the hardest to house people. Roof, which is an organization that helps youth. The Howard Johnson Society, there are many experts already within the region that I think the city needs to collaborate with in and be open to conversation. There are creative solutions, but often there is red tape because city bumps up against region and so forth. So we really need a collaborative approach. Thank you.
Mr. Davey, with your time on council, how could the city improve on its approach to homelessness?
Yeah, this really is a difficult one because, like I would say, all members of council are deeply concerned about it, but we struggle with it as well because there are jurisdictional boundaries, and the reality is, most people that are homelessness, a great number of them, there's mental health issues, and these are issues that are squarely under the regional government's jurisdiction. They have the resources the City of Kitchener does not. So while we're more than willing to help and collaborate, we don't have the funding for these sorts of issues to deal with them. So again, we struggle with it. It's a jurisdictional issue that we need to come to the region and be fair. Like, we do have some resources like bylaw officers and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, in your government, you have to have split responsibilities. City of Kitchener can't start dealing with healthcare. City of Kitchener can't start dealing with military. That's not our role or position. Our job is to help and facilitate the best we can, but we have to be clear that we're not overlapping, because once you start overlapping, then things start to become inefficient.
So, Ms. Stark, what's the best way Kitchener can get involved in as a city?
I'm just stunned because I don't agree. I'm tired of hearing, well, it's not ours, it's the regions, it's this. The City of Kitchener can start partnering with some of these organizations now. I agree with Stephanie. I've spent 18 years in the not-for-profit sector. My last year was spent at United Way. And I spent time with Community Support Connections, where I can't even begin to tell you how it broke my heart to see so many seniors who are living in squalor, who have no meals, who have no one to help them. The seniors are, for sure, one of the biggest groups that are spending the most amount of their money on housing. Homelessness and affordable housing, are different things, but they can go hand in hand. I've actually met with someone from Hugs. I met with someone from Kitchener Housing. I've met with Ray of Hope, and I've had constant communication over the past year with John Neufeld from the House of Friendship. We need to partner with them. If you walk 5 blocks in any direction from City Hall, you hit the most social agencies in Kitchener-Waterloo. So to say the region deals with all these things, for sure. But if you did a great plan from the city, from the council, and said, we want to partner with these people, we need your help with that, Hugs has told me it would probably happen. They're focused on finding a way to get the 300 most chronic homeless people into housing by the July 1st, 2019. 300 is doable. When you get them in there and you provide the supports, it's not immediate, it starts to change. And the drug issue is close to my heart. I have personal experience with one of my family members with that. He's clean now, but the House of Friendship was there for him. So I can't say enough about these agencies locally that as a member of council, I would commit to partnering with to make sure that we're looking at the most vulnerable in our society. Thank you.
And Mr. Davey, would you challenge that point at all by chance from your perspective?
No, and like again, we struggle with it because like where do you cross the line on jurisdictional boundaries? It's interesting because we did an Environics survey, which basically is a statistically significant survey across Kitchener, and we were all really happy with the fact that a lot of the results came back saying that these are some of the issues that residents are concerned about, meaning that we have a warm and caring community. It's just a matter of how do we implement. For example, obviously we'd have to dedicate resources to it. So if we raise property taxes to dedicate resources to the homeless, then suddenly we're raising the cost of living and pushing more people out of their homes. So it's a real catch-22, and as has been said several times, only a multi-pronged approach is ever going to solve this problem.
We want to get Ms. Hatoun's thoughts on this as well. So homeless and addiction, what would your approach be here?
Well, I totally agree. Homelessness and addiction, they are both big issues here in Kitchener. And it just simply breaks my heart going to work, seeing these people on the road. In fact, a couple of days back, I was in the car and my kids were sitting with me, and there I see a blanket at one of the bus stops. And I looked at them and my daughter says, what happened? I'm like, there's a blanket. That means somebody was sleeping there. You see, we have very good people in the neighborhood, in the community. We have good organization. The government needs to sit with them, get them on board, right? There is always a way for everything. It just needs that compassion. It just needs that caring for the community. It just needs you to think, what if that was you? And once you start thinking about it that way, I am 100% sure you will come up with a solution. I mean, there's nothing in this world that's without a solution. It's just that partner up with people. One person alone cannot do. Just make them sit on the table. The organizations should be on the table with you. And I'm telling you, there are so many brilliant ideas that can help in the issue of the homelessness. Again, addiction, to me, everything, with me, everything is, or maybe it's more like financial related, mental issues, job insecurities. What happens to you? I mean, you see your child asking for something and you can't do it. How do you kind of calm yourself down? Goes into drinking and slowly and gradually in addiction. So yes, there are these issues are there, but then again, communicating with the residents, communicating with the community, bringing them on the table, and definitely we'll find a solution to that.
Thank you for those passionate and thoughtful responses. We'll move on to another question actually from Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce Vice President Art Sinclair.
Historically, about 30% of eligible voters in Waterloo Region or any other city in Ontario actually show up at the polls on election day. Is this lack of engagement a concern, and how can municipal governments respond?
So Ms. Stretch, we'll begin with yourself in terms of getting citizens more actively engaged in the voting process.
Yeah, absolutely. So as mentioned, 30% of people vote in municipal elections. Currently in our last election in Ward 1, it was closer to 22% of people who actually voted. Absolutely, we can do better. I would like to encourage all the candidates here tonight. We need to get out and vote as we're knocking on doors. Yes, we need to be promoting ourselves and what we stand for, but we also need to be promoting active participation in democracy. I think it is a good and healthy sign that there are so many of us here where you could perhaps relate to someone or connect to someone who could represent you very well. I think the city could help promote people to vote by, there's many different ways they could, by helping to advertise or by helping candidates to advertise as well. Yeah, it's very important to our democracy, and it's very important to you, the voter, to be represented by someone who can really stick up for you. Thank you.
Mr. Davey, from your time on council, how would you improve that engagement?
For sure. So I actually have a different understanding than Ms. Stretch. I was under the impression that Ward 1 actually was among the leading in terms of voter turnout. They certainly were in 2010. I thought the number was closer to 34% in the most recent election. Having said that, that's still way too low. And I think there's a number of reasons for that. The first and foremost is I think there's been some voter fatigue in terms of our municipal elections coming hot in the heels of a very controversial, big out there provincial election, and that happened in 2014 as well. I think the other big issue is it's really confusing to vote in a two-tier government. You go out and you don't just vote for your mayor. You vote for your mayor, you vote for your councillor, you vote for 4 regional councillors, you vote for regional chair, you vote for your school board, and people are overwhelmed, and it's confusing, and I think it's really turning a lot of people off. The solution to that is a route that I'm not sure we want to go down at the moment, but I do think that we need to examine the number of politicians that we have in this community and maybe see if we can streamline that somehow to get people picking and choosing the candidate they really want to see everywhere.
And what solutions then would you provide, Ms. Stark?
When I started campaigning, I thought, I'm going to get to every door. Then as I looked at my maps, I went, wow, this is a really big area. But what I'm doing is when I'm trying to knock on every door, I'm trying to encourage people to vote. I actually thought of looking at the voter list and finding areas where people didn't vote to go in and say, why don't you vote? Many people probably think it doesn't matter, their voice isn't heard, what difference does my vote make? Well, we know in the 2010 election, one vote did indeed make a huge difference. The other thing we can look at is online voting. Many people, now maybe not the over 70 or 75, because I've met a lot of people that said, oh, I can't look at your website, I don't have internet. But if we do online voting, we know that the younger group, 40 and under, do most of their communications, most of their ordering online, everything on their phones or their computers. So that may be a way to do it, because if we lead them online, they will, first of all, seek out the information on the people that are running in their ward. The other thing I think we have to do is try to engage seniors, and if they need help getting to the polls, do that, because they are the people who built this city. They want to see it continue to thrive, and I believe they're very engaged in the process. So that's what I would do to try to increase it. I would love to see it at 50%. So I would challenge my running mates here, let's all get out and knock on every single door, one or the other, and just encourage people to vote for whoever they think the best candidate is. Thank you.
And Ms. Khatoon, how would you better engage voters?
Well, first of all, I'll tell you why people want to vote, why they don't vote, is because of the fact, rather than going out for voting, standing there in a line, why shouldn't I work, make an hourly wage for myself, right? That's one of the things. People don't come out to vote, right? Engaging them, again, yes, they need to know the importance of their vote, unless and until they're educated enough about the objective that, you know, it makes a huge difference whomever you, again, engage in the youth to come forward, know what are the problems in their communities and how they can be. We need to educate the children from the very young age, from the schools, from the colleges, from the universities, so they know what is the importance of their vote. If you all of a sudden, like, they don't know what is the meaning of vote, why should they vote, how voting helps them, how their candidate helped them. Somebody asked maybe a 17, 18-year-old person and say, hey, what does a councillor do? No clue. No clue at all. So make them understand the importance of the elected members, and only then they will come out and vote, so they understand their rights, their values, their houses, their interests can be protected by these representatives whom are being elected to the office. And I believe from there we can move on. Then again, yes, making it more accessible for the seniors so they can easily, or making it closer to their home so they can come out and vote, right? Making them understand how their vote counts. So I believe involving more and more youth, and we have a long way to go from schools onwards, so we can start a process to improve. Thank you.
And Mr. Drozdo, from what you've heard from the other candidates, where would you take your approach?
My approach has been a little bit old school. I looked at the numbers too before, and after the last election, and I realized that 29% voter turnout for the city of Kitchener is despicable, I guess would be the right word for it. As a lifelong political junkie and follower in the newspapers and following what's going on in the City Hall, I just thought that was terrible. 3 out of 10 people are choosing who's leading our city. It's a crazy number. So I decided that was going to be a focus of this campaign from the get-go. I did an old school whiteboard with one sentence on there: why don't you vote? And then I have a text with a phone number below it. So we've been getting people, other businesses, owners, people, just random people on the streets, and we've been asking them to hold the sign and take photos of it. It's been spreading among social media, hopefully getting picked up by some of the news channels. We're trying to push this thing out there because I've realized that it's not just about me getting votes out for Ward 1, it's about getting votes out for the entire city of Kitchener. We need more people engaged. How do you engage them more? Well, I feel like the city of Kitchener is pretty much doing the same thing they've done for the last 50 straight years. Maybe a little ad in the paper, maybe now a little bit of social media tweeting. That's not enough. 29% is a crisis. That's not enough to tell you what you're doing. Sure, you put these surveys out, sure, you go and ask the citizens, but it's not enough. What really counts is if people come down and vote. That gives you a real representation of how your government is doing. Anything less than that is not a real representation. A telephone poll, a survey, these things don't count. We need people to vote. That'll show you what they really want. To do that, maybe more engagement. How do you get more engagement? Well, maybe something like changing the date. I know that it's a provincial mandate. Maybe we need to fight that or work with the government and provincial government try to change the date. Why can't it be on a Saturday? A Saturday when more people are off, instead of a weekday when they're scrambling around with jobs and families and things like that. Why don't we do it in different places? Why don't we make it much simpler and do it where people are already going to? Why not have it at the local Zehrs grocery stores or any grocery store, or we have it at the local Tim Hortons? Places where people are constantly going every day. This is a simple solution. I've heard over and over again that people don't know where to vote. You think that would be the simplest thing to push across, is where to vote. I get phone calls last election, the night of the election, telling me I've been to 3 different schools and I can't find which one I can vote at. We need to make this much, much easier. There's no way it should go through so much time and effort to get people to vote.
Thank you, Mr. Drozdo. Just about to get you there, but I appreciate all your responses on that topic. That does indeed bring an end to the question answer portion of the debate. Each candidate now will have 2 minutes to provide a closing statement, and for that, we will begin with candidate Marcus Drozdo.
Door knocking has taught me a lot about what people really want in this city. And the simplest answer to that is fairness. We want a fair way to get things done. I hear stories all the time. It's always the smallest stories too. Oh, they did some work on the road, they dug up the front lawn, and now I got this hole there and I can't get anybody back to fix it. Why is that such a big deal? Or, hey, they took down the tree and now we've been waiting 1.5 years for a new tree. These things are ridiculous. They shouldn't take so long. Whatever we need to do, we need to get that started and process much simpler for people to get things done there in a timely order and fashion. The other one's development. We're sitting on a very, very important time in the city of Kitchener's history right now. We have almost $3 billion in permit starts going on in the city of Kitchener. That's a mass revenue that's coming in, first of all, for property taxes. So where is that money going to, which would be the first question everybody should be asking the incumbents and the city of Kitchener. But more importantly, what are we doing to hold developers accountable? We see this time and time again. I even talked to city planners inside the city department. 10 years ago, the city of Kitchener and the planners, they were the ones that controlled development in the city. Right now, we have developers that are doing whatever they want. Density bonuses, oh, here, write a check. Anything you want to do to get things done. They have full control right now of City Hall. If you watch council, it's not very hard to see which members of council sit amongst favor with developers. Developers are paying and pushing the councillors to choose to let them do whatever they want. We have all of these different surveys, we do all these parks programs, do all these things to engage citizens of what they want. But meanwhile, the developers come in and do whatever they want. The sitting member on this council beside us here today is, again, he's a developer wannabe as well. Take one look at his property at Bridge Street in Lexington, his development, look at the paper, find out the citizen engagement that came against that. He's in bed with the developers just as much as everybody else is. We need to step up to developers. This is an important time right now to make sure that Kitchener is a livable, great city for all of us, not just developers.
We'll provide Mr. Davey with a 30-second rebuttal there.
Sure, certainly. Yes, so one time in my life I purchased a property in Waterloo, and I've never built a thing in my life. The largest thing I've ever built is a shed. What happened is I came forward with a proposal, the residents didn't like it, and I changed the proposal until the residents love it. And I would encourage anyone that's interested in that to go and read it. It was a one-time thing, and I'm interested how that suddenly makes me a developer when the accuser here is a self-professed home builder. I'll leave it to you to determine his integrity in that comment.
Okay, we'll leave it on that topic. Ms. Khatoon, we'll move on to your closing remark.
Okay, well, I promise you one thing, from the day that I am elected, as soon as I'm elected, I'm personally going to go and meet with Mr. Ian McLean, the president of Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce, and going to sit with him and make strategies to come up with a plan for the Ward 1 Kitchener residents. They already have one that is called the Access Student Talent, and I am planning on having a strategy just for the residents of Kitchener Ward 1, so where they can better access or get better access to the facilities in the community and the better jobs. After that, I'm thinking I plan to sit with the school board trustees to make a plan for the coming generations to better train them. If people from other part of the city or other regions can come in, get better training here or get trained here and then go back, why can't our residents go and do the same? I will connect to the Chamber of Commerce of other regions and make sure that there are programs in place where our residents can go, get better training and come back and take care of their loved ones, their families, their seniors here, and live a better life in the Kitchener region, Ward 1. After that, I'm going to sit with the small business owners and make sure that we come up with strategies. If they need any concession, we're going to sit with them and facilitate those concessions so they can provide better jobs again for our youth and our families to raise their families in a better way. I'm not going to go into jugglery of words by saying our budget deficit is low or our the property tax are the lowest in the region compared to A or B. I am going to deliver results, and I'm going to show you the families whose life are in a miserable way, working two jobs, and how they are going to live better once I get elected.
Thank you very much. That was candidate Asia Khatoon. We move now to candidate Susan Stark.
Kitchener is our home. We've seen it thrive, we've seen it decline, and now we're seeing it be rebuilt. Development is indeed critical to the success of a city, but is it success if many of our residents aren't enjoying that? A plan is long overdue that will engage the developers in a way that they can give back to our social and infrastructure systems moving forward. I bring 3 H's to the table: head. I'm a pretty bright person. I've spent 30 years in the corporate and not-for-profit sectors creating strategic plans that get results. I've spent 18 years either as a member of the executive team or the finance committee that didn't just look at what was good to do. We created the budgets using other people's money that made a difference. We looked at what was needed and what would be nice, but we were always cognizant of the fact that we were using someone else's money. So at the risk of sounding like an old fogey or frozen in time, we watched our pennies. I know pennies aren't there anymore, but heart. I love this city. You love this city. We all want to work together to make sure it continues to be a fantastic place to raise our children, grandchildren, and you know what? Even make it fantastic for our aging parents to continue to enjoy life here. Hard work. I went back to school full-time as a single mother of 4. I worked part-time. I know what it's like to work hard. I wanted to give that work ethic to my children. For 20 years, my husband and I have been small business owners in different industries, so we know as well how difficult that is. I want to bring that work ethic to the table for all of the residents of Ward 1. Remember, you have the ability, the power right now on October 22nd to vote for Susan Stark and put the 2-term limit in place. We need change at the table, and I'm listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And the incumbent, Scott Davey.
Thank you. I'd like to begin by, again, thanking Rogers for this coverage and you, Dan, for moderating, as well as Mr. Sinclair for the questions that he's posed. I've shown what's been accomplished in my term on council. The strong financial footing we now enjoy that I helped build as Kitchener's finance chair over the last 7 years. I've detailed a clear platform on my website, www.scottdavey.info, where I detail not only what progressive actions I will take, but equally as important, how I intend to fund them while keeping taxes under inflation. My values are simple: work hard and with integrity. I have never, not once in 8 years, missed a single meeting of council or even a standing committee meeting. I refuse to leave my residents unrepresented when important decisions are being made. On the integrity front, I am fiercely independent. I successfully moved a motion to council to request the banning of corporate donations to political campaigns, a move the province ultimately enacted. And for my part, I have never accepted a donation, personal or corporate, and have actually returned unsolicited checks. This is my pledge to show that I represent not developers or special interest groups, but you and only you, the people of Ward 1 and the good citizens of Kitchener. My experience is unequal in this ward, and my record speaks for itself. On October 22nd, vote for integrity, vote for experience, and vote for efficiency. And please cast your ballot once again for Scott Davey. Thank you.
And our final candidate, Stephanie Stretch.
Thank you. Yes, thank you to Rogers for hosting, for the people in front of the cameras and behind the cameras. I'd also like to thank my fellow candidates for participating so well and so passionately. I believe that now is the time for our local leadership to prioritize collaboration and consensus building. You've heard some great ideas and some thoughts tonight, but they really don't mean anything unless somebody's willing to work with you. I am a team builder, and I am focused on collaboration. We need to balance our urban growth with environmentally, socially, and culturally conscious development, where you have a voice. I have spent my career listening to people about what they want and acting to deliver change. Through my work at Horizon and Pathways to Education, I directly support families and youth. I am comfortable working with all ages, from a high-powered executive to a teenager to someone living close to the streets. I'm a listener, and I know how to bring different voices to the table. There needs to be a change, and I am that change. My leadership style and experience will best serve Ward 1. As we face new developments, as we've talked about tonight, we need someone that's going to listen to you and represent you and advocate for you. I believe that we can find middle ground, and I believe that I'll be the candidate that can do that for you. You can trust me and depend on me to advocate for you and to stand up for you. I'm dedicated and committed. I will work tirelessly and give the much needed attention to the strengths of Ward 1. I am a strong new voice with deep roots here in Ward 1. I'm asking for your support, and I'm asking for your vote. Please vote for Stephanie Stretch on October 22nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I'd also like to thank all the Ward 1 candidates for participating in tonight's debate. So make sure to watch Rogers TV on the night of October the 22nd for up to the minute local results. On behalf of the Rogers TV production crew, I'm Dan Polishchuk. Thanks for watching.